Welcome back to the Vintage Bubblegum Pod. I'm your host, Cal, and I'm so excited that you're joining me today. On this podcast, we talk about boy bands, girl groups, pop music from the mid to late 90s and the early 2000s. It's something I'm extremely passionate about. I can talk your ear off about it, and that's exactly why I wanted to create this podcast. So let's get into it. In 1981, Daryl Hall and John Oates, collectively known as Hall and Oates, wrote a song called I Can't Go For That. It was their second single from their 10th studio album, Private Eyes. It became their fourth number one hit of their career on the Billboard charts. And interestingly enough, in relation to today's topic, the song I Can't Go For That was written in C chords, C minor and C major, and also very intentional but related. The song I Can't Go For That, John Oates says that he wrote about his relationship with the music industry. He said the song is about not being pushed around by big labels, managers, and agents. And that's related today because today we're talking about CNote. And unfortunately, CNote was largely failed by just those groups of people. So in 1999, the four fellas known as CNote from Orlando, David, Brody, Raul, and Drew, nabbed the sample groove hook from Hall & Oates' song I Can't Go For That to help create their single Wait Till I Get Home. Reached number 33 at its highest point on the Billboard charts. The R&B group Full Force were the producers for the song. They produced and arranged Wait Till I Get Home, and they're actually... we'll probably talk about them again at some point. They produced a lot of music at this time in the same vein. Probably their biggest hit was 1998's All I Have to Give by the Backstreet Boys. Also in 1989, De La Soul released a song called Say No Go that used the same Hall & Oates hook, and they're the ones I think kind of made it a little funkier, sort of elongated the sound for a more full R&B sound as opposed to a rock synthesizer sound like Hall & Oates. So it's hard to say which one Full Force took more inspiration from. On the liner notes of Wait Till I Get Home, Hall & Oates is fully credited, but who's to say which came first? I also kind of hate to admit this, but I had a really good classic rock upbringing, and I definitely heard CNote's Wait Till I Get Home before I heard the Hall & Oates song. Because I remember when I heard the Hall & Oates song, I thought to myself, this sounds really familiar. And it should have totally been the other way around. But, you know, that's why we're here. Because that's who I am. The story of CNote is actually more fascinating than I was anticipating. I gathered this information mostly from member David Perez. He was a guest on the Florida Sound Archive podcast, where he talked about his time with CNote and his time with Lou Pearlman. I won't really get into the stuff he got into specifically with Lou or talk more about CNote, but it's very fascinating, and he said he's writing a book, an autobiography about his time. CNote was originally created to do talent shows. They went by Sin Igual. All of the members were of Latin descent, and that's what set them apart at that time, especially. And the thing I really like about CNote's origins is their super DIY nature, which is very unique to a lot of other groups at this time, which were literally manufactured for the purpose of being a group and selling albums. CNote was created first, and then they found representation next, which is unusual. And I think it's really cool. They would do stuff like if they were out at a restaurant and they heard somebody having a birthday, they would go over and sing them happy birthday a cappella and then give them a flyer, tell them, you know, we're going to be performing here, come check us out. And I love that. They actually got discovered by an associate of Transcontinental Records, which was owned by Lou Pearlman, who we're going to talk about a lot on this podcast, unfortunately. He was a very interesting person, to say the least. about him. But when they were discovered by Lou and this associate, they performed How Deep Is Your Love by the Bee Gees. Two of the members of CNote is actually really interesting, were members of NSYNC formerly before they landed on their famous 5-piece, because Sin Igual had other members and they lost some of the members of Sin Igual, and then Brody and Raul were brought in to fill in the roles. And Lou Pearlman actually wanted CNote originally to fill that formula of 5 guys, but in the end he actually agreed to leave them a 4-piece because they just weren't finding anybody who was really fitting CNote the way they needed to. This is actually kind of a strange note, but I thought it was very interesting and very telling of Lou Pearlman in the way he did business. He actually bought into the Chippendales act, and his plan was to use CNote with the Chippendales somehow. I don't know if he was planning to have them be like musical guests for the shows or whatever, but around the Transcontinental Records where all the other groups were rehearsing and recording, he would say, "This isn't CNote, this is C5." And he would tell all of the other groups, like, don't worry about them, they're not a threat. Like, they're not even a real group. They're just associated with my Chippendales act. But then to CNote, he'd be like, "You guys are my favorite, and like, you guys are my focus." And like, David Perez said, all the other groups at Transcontinental like knew what they were doing, knew that they were rehearsing and recording an album, and they would be like, "We know Lou is lying, that he's like full of crap." But to Lou's face, CNote and like all the other artists there had to be like, "Yeah, sure, there's C5 with the Chippendales, like whatever you say." Just so strange. Lou Pearlman had wanted to keep them a secret, and for some reason I think it was like his weird idea of creating competition amongst his artists. It's very strange, and everyone knew but had to pretend like they didn't. I don't know, it's very strange. David Perez described the vibe around Transcon at that time as super creative, and they were all mingling together. He said it was like a fun frat house sorority kind of vibe. Like, everyone was there rehearsing and recording and also trying to have fun. I mean, they were all really young. When you break it down, everyone who was working with this label was in their 20s or their teens. And he said he mingled with all the other groups and got to see everybody else rehearsing and recording. He was there with Innocence, LFO, Take 5, groups like that. And they were all working on choreography, hanging out. Unfortunately, some of those good vibes around Transcon were just as manufactured as Lou wanted them to be. It's unfortunate, but CNote never really got out of the early performances at radio festivals and malls. But they were actually performing with Britney right around the time Baby One More Time came out. And she was just starting her ascent into queenhood. And David Perez actually said there was a period of time where CNote was kind of starting to eclipse Britney. And he likened it to when Tiffany and the New Kids on the Block were doing mall shows together, and New Kids eventually just overtook Tiffany by miles. Britney's manager at the time, Johnny Wright, used his influence to bump CNote down a few spots. Like, they were always right before Britney, and he knocked them down to like 4 or 5 spots earlier. So less and less people could see them and hear them because they were feeling a little threatened by, CNote's ability to possibly eclipse Britney. I mean, what a world that would have been. And actually, I think this is a really funny story. Given what we know today, in 2024, David Perez said, jokingly, but that Justin Timberlake told him that he was threatened by their Latin charm and told Britney to stay away from them, which I think is it's kind of funny. It's messed up, but it's kind of funny given what we know now. David Perez also mentions that they kind of had a lighthearted rivalry with 98 Degrees back in the day, especially when they released Give Me Just One Night, Una Noche, which had it was a song in Spanglish, and it had like a similar Latino vibe to what CNote was already doing. And actually on this single, there's a Spanish version of Wait Till I Get Home. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but it's cool. It's the same song, but in Spanish, and it's really good. But Lou Pearlman had a bad habit of creating that rivalry between his artists. So he would always say to CNote, like, you guys are next. You're the next number one. You guys are going straight to the top. You're my focus. But David Perez notes that there are a lot of deals that Perlman didn't follow through on that cost them a lot of exposure and work. And then especially when Making the Band came out and O-Town was his focus, he said they were just like completely put onto the back burner. Just like, Take Five and Innocence too. They were just pushed to the side. One of the bad things about Lou Pearlman as a leader, he had so many irons in the fire, he didn't even really know which one to focus on or how to give all of, everybody their fair shot. CNote released their first full-length album, A Different Kind of Love, in 1999, which I can't go for that. That's not their single. Wait Till I Get Home was featured on. I personally didn't listen to the full album back in the day. I just really liked Wait Till I Get Home. But I listened to it recently, which is kind of good because I can have a little bit more of like an objective perspective on it now. A Different Kind of Love didn't really pull me in like some of the other artists' albums at the time. It has a decent mix of songs that are upbeat and ballads, but it was really more leaning towards the ballad side. I would say Spanish Fly is probably the other standout on the record. A Different Kind of Love came out right before there was a changeover in sound for these groups like this. I would say prior to 2000, from like 97 to 99, there was this very saccharine, sweet sound coming out of these boy bands. And turn of the millennium, 2000 on, there was a lot more of a focus on like heavy beats, dance floor vibes, those kind of things. And unfortunately, A Different Kind of Love is a little disappointing on that end because it just doesn't grab you. Like NSYNC's debut, re-listened to it recently, and it's just like bop after bop. And we know that Lou Pearlman was capable of giving CNote the things that they needed to succeed because he already did it with NSYNC. But unfortunately, there wasn't really anything that was super standout about the record. The tracks do show beautifully how well they work together. Their harmonies are on point. They sound amazing together. The talent is obvious. It's just unfortunate that the songs are a little like, they're not they're not super catchy. So there's a music video for Wait Till I Get Home, which I hope to talk about more on TikTok if you want to check that out. The video was directed by Nigel Dick, who's a name you'll probably hear again, because he directed a lot of boy band and girl group music videos at that time. And there are also several performances of Wait Till I Get Home on YouTube. And I actually think CNote shines so much better live, which is also a really rare feat. They're very charismatic, electric, hard to pull your eyes away from. They're just so talented. And it's really a shame that they were failed so hard by Lou Pearlman and Transcontinental Records. There's an example that David Perez talks about. CNote had a last bid with Atlantic Records for a record deal, and Lou Pearlman needed something else to work out besides just a showcase for CNote, like another group, that when the deal didn't work out for him, he had no problem of letting the careers of the guys of CNote become collateral for the other thing that he wanted, which is so vile, in my opinion. It's really a shame. David Perez also mentions that he thought Lou Pearlman was evil and maniacal, but unfortunately a real genius. He says Lou's bad decisions caused CNote to disband once. Then they did try to reunite in 2008 with 2 new members. They released a single called Chivalry that didn't really go anywhere. I don't think the nostalgia boom for boy bands was quite where it is today. So they were maybe a little ahead of the curve there. They tried to reunite again as a 5-piece in 2013, but it wasn't until 2023 that CNote actually got back together as their most successful 4-piece. And they went on tour with the Pop 2000s tour that was hosted by Chris from NSYNC. And it had Brad from LFO, and I guess there's 3 members of O-Town still left, and they were on that tour as well. Unfortunately, with all the acts at that time, it really came down to the right place at the right time, a little bit of luck, and a good promotional team and management team, which sadly Lou Pearlman was not doing for CNote, and he failed those guys miserably, and it's really a shame. But CNote is super active right now on social media. They have a merch store, and I gotta tell you, it really warms my little boy band loving heart to see them back together, and they're amazing as they've always been. So if they're coming to your area, check them out. You won't be disappointed, I swear. As with all the episodes, we're going to do it with this episode. It's the lyric read. This song has the same thesis that you will find in many, many boy band songs. And actually, reading this song out loud sounds vaguely threatening. When they sing it, it's very sweet and kind. But just reading it as a poem, it sounds a little off-putting. They're basically, the song is about missing your partner and wanting to get home to, which is one of my favorite things that boy bands say, do you good and treat you like a real man should, which is where it gets kind of vaguely threatening. Basically, that's what this whole song is about. You're gonna get their love. You're gonna get it. There's a part in the song where they give you a schedule that, okay, you know, you're working your 9 to 5. It's time to come home. It's 6 o'clock. It's time to make love. 9 o'clock, you take a little breather. No dinner for you, which is vaguely threatening, you know. The line, you're gonna get it, comes up a lot in this song. I know you don't mean it that way, CNote, but that's kind of how it comes off. I also know you didn't write it, so it's not your fault. You just had to sing the song. Now we're going to do a second must-do every episode. It's the dramatic reading of boy band lyrics. And I'm just going to take this moment to mention that I have a Patreon as well as a Ko-Fi. If you join the Patreon or if you donate to Ko-Fi, and if you would like, I can put your name in to be on the next episode of Vintage Bubblegum Pod to do our dramatic boy band reading. So that's something you could get if you join. I have one tier on Patreon, or leave me a tip on Ko-Fi. But until then, it's just me. So I will try my best to get into the mind of someone who's dying to get home to do you real good. Sorry. I'll try my best to focus and get into the right mind frame here. So this is a dramatic reading of Wait Till I Get Home by CNote. We'll rock the whole night through. All I want to do. Baby, I need your love and affection. Get things moving in the right direction. 6 o'clock. It's time to make love. 9 o'clock. Take a little breather. I just can't wait. Damn, I can't wait to see her when I get home. When I get home to that sweet, sweet lovin'. You're going to get it. As soon as I get home. I give good love. You're going to get it. Wait till I get home. See, it sounds threatening. And now I'm really excited to introduce a brand new segment called Brody's Corner. It's my 9-year-old daughter, and she wants to share her opinion of Wait Till I Get Home by CNote.
I feel like the song is okay, but at the beginning it's kind of weird, like in this deep toned voice.
Oh yeah, baby. CNote's coming home, girl.
And at the end, I think it's really cool, and it really makes me want to dance and sing it.
Thank you so much, Brody. That was absolutely riveting. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Vintage Bubblegum Pod. Like I said, I have a Patreon. I have a Ko-Fi. You can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on TikTok. I'm going to be posting on YouTube as well. This is going to be on Spotify and YouTube. And I'm hoping to integrate the amazing music videos, some live performances on the YouTube channel. Try to make some playlists. I'm Vintage Bubblegum Pod. It's just me over here. I'm researching, writing, recording, editing, posting on social media. It's all just me. So, like I said, I do have a Patreon and a Ko-Fi if you want to donate to help me.
Help me, I'm poor.
And I'm doing this strictly because it's a passion of mine. It's something that I've wanted to do for many, many years. And I'm finally in a place where I feel like I'm capable of putting all of this out on internet land for everyone to consume. I'm really hoping to build a community around this. I mean, I remember when I was 14, when this song came out, there was nobody around that I could talk to about it. So I'm hoping that some of you out there felt the same, and me talking about this stuff is jogging your memory, bringing you some joy, teaching you something, hearing information about these groups that you never even thought of, never thought was possible. I'm finding it super fascinating. I hope you are too. Thank you so much for tuning in. Next week, we're going to be talking about Solid Harmony's song, I'll Be There For You, which is a huge bop. So thank you once again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.